Hello and welcome to There's No Business Like, a podcast where friends and industry colleagues explore topics and interview leaders in our industry of professional theatrical touring.
Hey everybody, welcome back to There's No Business Like. I'm Bryan Zelmer from KU Presents at Kutztown University, and I'm here with my friends, Kevin
Maynard, Quad City Arts, splitting the border between Iowa and Illinois.
Danielle
Van Hook from the Alden in McLean, Virginia.
Katie
Miller with Michigan Maven Creative Associates in Midland, Michigan.
And Josh
Benson, rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic Center.
So we're recording this right after the Midwest Arts Xpo, which we had another presence there this year with a booth and a lot of exciting things. But what we captured were several topical interviews. And this week we're featuring one of them. But before I get into that, I just do want to mention that while I said we were there, I actually wasn't able to go this year. So I had a stand-in my place, or should I say standee, that they named Bry-Bacca. Can you guys just share how that went?
It was amazing.
Bry-Bacca was a celebrity.
Yeah, I don't know that you've ever been that tall. It was amazing.
Or popular.
For our listeners that didn't go to Max, can you just tell them what that Bry-Bacca was?
So Kevin has a stand-up of Chewbacca in his office that is always in his shot when we record. And so what we did was we did cutouts of Brian's face and taped them on Chewbacca. And Kevin brought Bry-Bacca all the way from Rock Island, Illinois to Indianapolis in his car. And then we put him in our booth. And lots of people loved it and took pictures. And he was a celebrity. Absolutely.
And I was told that people are okay if I don't go to any more conferences, just Bry-Bacca goes now. So
I think that's the expectation.
Yeah, I think you're still invited, but like Bry-Bacca still has to come too. So
Do you have to buy him a plane ticket?
Yeah.
Oh no, he folds down nicely. So
just like the real Bryan. So.
Yeah, just like the real Bryan.
So this week, our first topic we're going to bring you is curation. And we spoke with 5 different people, 5 different colleagues, 2 presenters, 2 self-represented artists, and an agent. And so we're going to talk on the other side after we hear those short interviews and tell you some of our thoughts.
Hi, I'm Gary Minyard. I'm the Chief Creative Officer at Dayton Live. I'm happy to be here at Max in Indianapolis.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about curation and season planning and all sorts of things. So,
sounds good.
What are you excited to begin planning for the 25-26 season?
I'm really excited about some of the family product that's out there, some of the new shows that, whether it's page to stage or maybe something original, I'm really excited to see what we can bring into Dayton for those families there.
Excellent. So are there any trends that you are seeing in the industry, new trends you're seeing, work that's ready to tour or that's emerging in the industry?
Yeah, there's a handful of trends that I'm noticing. One is immersive activities. I mean, we've seen the immersive Van Goghs and Monets, and we're seeing that translating into more theatrical presenting arenas. We're seeing some big performing arts centers build new immersive buildings, some shows that are more immersive. And, my hope is that we're going to see some of those ideas percolating in product that becomes more accessible to more of the country. Mm-hmm. It's very expensive to do that. And so, I think smaller, mid-sized to smaller presenters are going to be hesitant to buy those things. But I can see that happening over the next 18 months where we'll see that kind of start washing over some experience, like experiential type shows.
Right.
So, and then I think another trend that I'm seeing that, it may not be as new as the immersive piece, but this idea of risk-taking, where we're seeing some more unique shows coming out of the TYA world, where theater for young audiences, those companies that are building shows for children and families are more attuned to the risk-taking because the shows aren't necessarily geared toward that bitter, jaded adult that we're all trying to get into the seat, right?
Right.
So, I'm seeing a little bit more of that, like post-pandemic. We're seeing some of those tried and true titles still, but we're also now seeing an equal amount of new and exciting work that I think presenters like me want to book and get in our venues.
So with that, with new work coming as a presenter, how do you then market that or position that to your audiences so that the artist might be willing to take a chance, the presenter is willing to take a chance, but how do you get the audiences to then take a chance?
They have to be a part of the deal, right? So although they haven't signed on the dotted line, our audiences have to be willing to come to the venue with you. So our job to market these shows is more about relationship building and less about, hey, come see this amazing show. It's not Cinderella, but we're going to call it Cinderella, right? To kind of hook them in. It's really more about what kind of experience are you trying to curate for those families? Are you going to create a way for them to continue after the show's done, to stay connected with you? Is this part of a subscription series that maybe you've packaged with another popular title so you start to build in the risk, though they don't know you've done that?
Right.
So, there's those tricks of the trade that we can do. But I think for me, it really starts with the relationship building and getting those families to trust that you are, you're wanting to go on the journey with them, and that it's not like, hey, I bought this for you, I hope you like it, you know?
Right.
Even though from their perspective, it's like, you didn't buy anything for me, I'm buying it, right? So, they're going through all those things. It's like the thing that I've always thought is that getting someone to come to a show is Herculean because of all of the obstacles that day.
Yes.
From they got up with a headache, they didn't have a good breakfast, the car didn't start, it's raining, it's cold out.
The kids are having a meltdown.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The list is just astronomically long. And they still, the day of the show, don't have their ticket. And you are trying to get them to, come to a show as a family of 3 or 4 or 5 or 2. I mean, it's amazing. So when they walk in the door, why haven't we done everything we can to thank them for doing that? And that could be anything from simple activities pre or post to I'm handing out stickers to kids,
I love that. I love
And-
that idea of thanking the audience for being there.
Yeah.
Like that, I love that concept. That's a really great way
Yeah.
to phrase that.
And you know what? If they come back, that's great. But every time that I'm in the lobby and a family was there the show before, I never take it for granted when they thank us, And whether that's doing a sensory-friendly experience like what we talked about that earlier today to, something that is more like this is new to everybody. I don't even know what this show is. It has a weird title. Okay, well, let's go on this journey together. Cool.
So what do you think audiences beyond just youth and family audiences are looking for in our industry? What are they looking for in, say, the next 18 months?
Man, if we all knew that, right? When I think some of those similar words we're talking about is like an experience. They want value. They want something immersive. They want something maybe educational. But maybe not in the academic sense. But they also want something entertaining. And so if we've got a show that kind of wraps around some of those words, and you've got, as a venue, have curated their experience with you from parking to getting to the theater to getting through your security measures to the box office to the volunteers to their seat, and you've made it just seamless for them, then they're going to come back. But what we don't want them looking for, which is maybe the easier list, are to eyeball the problems, right? Like, oh, I had a problem. I had an abrasive usher, or, they didn't have my ticket ready. So for me, I want it to be seamless, and I want them to have a good time, and I want them to come back.
What types of audience engagement or outreach programs do you think are the most effective in creating deeper relationships with audiences?
It's honestly the one-on-one interactions that are the most impactful. We used to do a family workshop in between our family performances. So we'd have a 1 o'clock and a 4 o'clock. And then that hour in between the shows, we would have a workshop. And so families could stay or come a little early. And we had 100 spots, and it would sell out every time. We'd only charge $5 to make sure somebody showed up. And really that money was spent on the materials that they would take home. And there was a family that would bring their young children to these shows every single time and come to the workshop every single time. And the first time I met this family, their young daughter walked up to me. I think she was 4. And I said, "Hi, how are you? I'm excited that you're here." And she growled at me. And her mom and dad were like, "What's going on?" And they kept coming back year after year. She is now in junior high and in our creative academy taking classes with us, performing in musicals and shows. And it's because of that family workshop that she got connected to what we do, that now we've created a pathway for her to have this lifelong connection to the arts. And that's what it's all about, right? So how can we keep doing that and make sure that our staffs really embody that, so that when those families come back, that they're excited and eager to be there, and they're going to bring friends, they're going to bring other families, and we're going to pack those audiences.
That's great.
We're gonna make those percentages get back up.
Yeah. 1-to-1 and creating pathways.
1-to-1 creating pathway.
It.
Yep.
That's great. Well, Gary, thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, of
it's
course.
So great to talk to you.
Yeah.
I'm Sarah Saltwick from Holden and Arts Associates.
All right, let's have a talk about curation. What are you excited to begin planning in the 25-26 season?
I think we have a lot of works this year on the roster that are in a couple different genres. So we've got live music with movement, we've got some puppetry, we've got things that are taking classic stories in a new way, and just sort of big, ambitious works that have a lot of curiosity in them. We've got a lot of science too. I'm really in a science mode. So there's a lot of content and then also style that I'm very excited about.
Are there any trends that you are seeing presenters are looking for today?
I think presenters are looking for incredible experiences. I think this has been true for general audiences for a long time, but I think for family audiences, they want something people are going to remember. They want things that are unexpected. They want cool visuals. They want people to say, like, "Wow, I can't believe that happened."
And what do you think audiences are looking for our industry to bring them in the next 18 months?
I know what I am looking for as an audience member is something I can bring my whole family to, something I'm going to have a good time at, that's maybe going to show me something I haven't seen before, make me think about something I haven't seen, or give me insight into something. I'm looking for that creative experience, but that also is a little intellectual but fun, and that I can really bring my kid and my husband and maybe even my parents to.
What types of audience engagement or outreach do you think are most effective in creating deeper relationships with audiences?
I think really successful audience engagement helps an audience understand how an artist has created the work and some of the questions and processes that went into making it. I think about the way a visual artist might do a gallery talk or a process talk about even what materials they use and what they were inspired by. And I'd love to see our performing artists do that as well. I think there's things that you think might be obvious to somebody in the field, but I don't think it's obvious to the audience what kind of work happened before the event on their stage and what kind of considerations they had to take into account.
Great. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Okay.
My name is Joshua Kane. I'm a self-represented solo theater artist. I've been in the industry for about 30 years. Touring a series of one-man shows ranging from performances of Gothic horror to a mind-reading show called Borders of the Mind.
Excellent. Joshua, thanks for sitting down today. I'd like to ask you a couple questions on curation. So first off, what are you excited to begin planning for the 2025-2026 season?
Last night I had the opportunity to showcase stories that I have not performed in 30 years. I started off in the industry as a storyteller, performing in public schools, $600 a day. This was back in the 1980s. I was a master teaching artist for the state of Connecticut. And this was before I had put together Gothic at Midnight, the one-man show I brought into the industry. When I came in as a solo theater artist, I was advised to conceal my storytelling roots because the word had become déclassé because every Barnes & Noble had a storyteller. This year I called up a bunch of the presenters and I asked, what of my shows from the past would you like me to bring back for the coming year? And I put forward a series of titles, and you and several others said you wanted to see the storytelling. And it was a wonderful experience, and it is, I believe, the kind of work that I'm looking to be doing more of going forward, because it is all crashing down that fourth wall. And I believe that the audiences today are looking for experiences, Kevin, where they feel that they are seen by the artist. I think it is more important for the audience since the pandemic to feel that we see them than for us to be seen by them. I also believe they are looking for experiences where they feel identification and experiences where their presence actually actively changes the event by their showing up. And that's the extraordinary thing about our industry, is we create ephemeral moments for community. And I believe that with the political situation in the country right now, as we are curating for the next season, we need to focus on events that allow diverse communities to come together and experience something special in the moment, so that when they look at each other at the grocery store the next day, they see each other a little bit differently.
I love that. Are there any new trends that you are being asked to either create new work around, or that is a current part of your work?
Absolutely. It's fascinating. My family, we've had some discoveries about ourselves recently, which are changing the opportunities and potential for my work. I recently discovered I was neurodiverse. It's my family. We have a number of people who've had a diagnosis, and that's the missing manual from my childhood. I understand so many more things much better now. And many of the strategies that I had to create as an artist to function as on the spectrum as I do are the same strategies that are being taught to young people now. So I'm very interested in trying to do work and bring forward my personal story with this work in ways where neurodiverse communities are going to feel more welcomed at our events, and where the neurodiverse friendly aspect, which is something which benefits all audiences, by the way, is an opportunity for us to have more people feel identification with belonging in our art centers. And the art centers have to be the wagon wheel of the community. They are the hub on the wheel. All roads need to lead to them.
What do you think audiences are looking for our industry to bring them in the next 18 months?
I believe audiences today are looking for the events where they actually feel special and seen in the moment. As I was saying, the audience needs us to recognize that their presence changes the event and makes it better. So I wish that presenters would be looking at, instead of doing shows only in their big halls, which I understand are very lucrative, having artists come into town and be embedded in the community, where we get to know them, where we go to the high school musicals, where we are involved. Because that way the community knows the artist cares about them. It is hard right now to ask an audience to care about us until they know we already like them and are interested in them. Bringing artists from the outside can validate the community.
Absolutely. Joshua, thanks for sitting down with me today.
Kevin, it's a thrill. Wonderful seeing you, and I love your podcast.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Eric Matters, and I am the director of the Warren Performing Arts Center here on the east side of Indianapolis.
Excellent. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So we are going to talk a little bit about curation. Are you ready?
An interesting topic.
Yes. Okay, so what are you excited to begin planning for the 25-26 season?
So I have an incredibly diverse audience to work with being attached to a high school. We're 80% African American, and we have a booming Haitian Creole population, which I'm trying to find more content for. So as I'm going around here at Max, I'm looking for shows that specifically cater to some of my growing populations that we haven't had in the past.
Interesting.
That we're trying to make regular patrons of the facility.
Interesting. Are there any new trends that you are seeing in work that's ready to tour or is going out on tour in the next 18 months? So like as you're walking around the expo hall, you're talking with agents, what trends in programming are you seeing?
So I would say the slimness of shows. They used to be a lot bulkier, a lot heavier, a lot more hotel rooms, a lot more backline, and really post-COVID, but I think as we're starting to see that even with audiences still not being where they were pre-COVID, or being back to that number, I should say, the artists and the agents have learned that they need to get even trimmer to make the prices work even better for those of us who are presenters. And so as I'm seeing that, I'm seeing far smaller writers when I get them. I'm seeing tech writers that used to have a full page about the food that they required, and now it's a paragraph with a tagline that says, any allergies to follow later, you know. So it's just much slimmer, much easier to kind of digest, go through, and it on our part it means a lot less back end work to try and figure out, okay, so if I have, their fee plus the hotel fees, if I don't want to buy them out, and then I've got hospitality, so not having to do as much math. All the math we do, but less math.
Right. Interesting. Okay. What do you think audiences are looking for from our industry to bring to them in the next 18 months to 2 years?
A reason to get off their couch. Honestly, I think one of the things, and again, we're going to use COVID as a measuring stick because it is the point that we all reference now. People got used to being on their couch, they got used to being at home, and they got used to their circle. Even as we got out of COVID, people didn't exactly go back to being social butterflies. They didn't exactly run out back into what they used to. And so once they've developed their circle, they kind of stay in their circle. And so getting them to get off their couch and come out of their circle and come back to doing things that either they wouldn't have done previous or used to do but now don't do. And I think they want a reason, but we need to make the reason more enticing. It cannot just be come see a show. It needs to be an event, an experience. It needs to be something that they'll remember and then want to tell somebody about later, not just, I saw a cool show last night. It's like, we went to the show and we did this, and then we did this, and by the way, then the artist came out and talked to us.
Right.
And so making an experience that gives them a solid reason to get up off their couch and get out of their circle.
Yeah, I love that. So what types of audience engagement or outreach do you think are the most effective in creating deeper relationships with the audience?
So I'm attached to a high school. So for me, it's making sure that my students go home to their parents and say, Mom, Dad, we did this really cool thing today during school. You need to come see the rest of the show, because your matinee shows are always a shorter version of your longer ones. So if the kid comes home and is like, this was so cool, then the parents are like, maybe it's not so bad. Maybe I'll go see that. And then finding shows that have a good balance of adult material, adult themes, or things that adults can relate to, but also that the kids are going to get. We use Shrek as kind of the benchmark of that, the movie Shrek, if you will. There were enough adult jokes in that any of the adults who took their kids to see it at the time were like, haha, I got it. Well, the kids are like, look at the talking donkey, and they missed the crude joke, if you will. And so it's finding shows that the kids are going to go home and talk about, and then that brings their parents out, and then they talk to some other folks, and then you start to build this desire to see, what else are they doing? And so I think that's how you connect with them, is you give them a reason. I just referenced what I said earlier. You give them a reason to get off their couch, and you do that by engaging the people who already are off their couch, who have to travel anyways, which is your kids who have to come to school.
Right. Excellent. I love that. I love that thought process. Well, thanks so much for sitting down with us. It's great to see you here at Max.
Thank you for taking the time.
My name is Jeremy Davis. I lead the fabulous Equinox Orchestra. I tell some lame jokes, and I play saxophone and lead the band. That's what I do.
Jeremy, I'm excited to talk to you today about curation. What are you excited to begin planning in the 25-26 season?
I don't even know where to begin with this answer. There's a lot. We have new shows that we're always working on, which I love. It was actually an idea of a presenter. It kind of morphed into a whole other thing. So it's a new show we're doing called Hollywood Hits, the songs that made the movies, all the way from way back in the beginning of Hollywood, like 1920s and 30s, like Hooray for Hollywood's a Johnny Mercer song, Hooray for Hollywood, screwy booey bally hooey Hollywood. Johnny Mercer from Savannah, Georgia wrote that song all the way through like 9 to 5, like Dolly Parton and let's see, Back to the Future. I don't know all the songs off the top of my head, but we're like, there's like 50 songs. We only can do like 13. So we're curating that. That's super fun. We're taking the fabulous Equinox Orchestra and 40 super fans flying to Istanbul, and we're doing following the missionary journeys of the Apostle Paul through like Rome, Athens, Greece, different parts of Italy. I'm telling you, it's going to be magic and crazy, and you should come. So we're curating that whole experience, and we're doing concerts along the way, and kind of doing some give back things along the way, some charitable things with some orphanages and things like that. So it's kind of like this big extended version of all the things we do between our nonprofit Equinox Global Missions and the fabulous Equinox Orchestra. So it's like a whole boatload of curation. That's fun, right?
Yeah, that's a much bigger answer than I was expecting. I love it.
Yes.
Are there any new trends that you're being asked to either create new work around, or if your current work is a part of that trend?
One trend that we're seeing, and you could call it good or you could call it bad. A lot of people have called it bad, and I know that it's good in certain things, but it's the addition of the tribute acts to the PAC marketplace. Used to be, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it wasn't a thing. Like people weren't going to do that. But it puts butts in seats, right? I love Tom Petty. I love the Eagles. Let's do this, right? So we have taken that trend and we have tweaked it in a way that's pretty unique to us. Like our Beatles at Bourbon Street show is crazy fun. Like we took 100 Beatles songs and then I spent weeks trying to curate that down into a 90-minute show. And then we even took really great other albums of artists who've done Beatles songs like John Picciarelli and Willie Nelson, whoever, taken their versions and really found the beauty and then stolen some of those ideas and then tweaked them and then made our own version of this spicy Louisiana inspired Mardi Gras version of the Beatles. Plus, the Beatles on their very first American tour made one stop in New Orleans, and those crazy Cajuns lost their minds and tore the entire place down. They had to quit in the middle of the show. They never came back to New Orleans, and it's such a picture of just the way, the sweet way that crazy Cajuns in Louisiana are. They're so passionate about music, and they truly lost their mind. People got hurt. It's crazy. But we tell part of the story about it, which is kind of a funny little tribute to our home state of Louisiana. So that's kind of a trend that came our way that we weren't excited about. But then we said, okay, we can capitalize on this because the name Beatles will put butts in seats. And even if they don't know who I am, they see that name. And that's kind of so we kind of capitalized on that trend and kind of tweaked it and made our own.
Awesome. What do you think audiences are looking for our industry to bring them in the next 18 months?
Maybe bring them together, because gosh, we're in the middle of such a divisive season, with the politics and things. So I think the theater can be an opportunity for us to come together, because you know how it is. I mean, it's like, especially with social media, it can be so divisive, but in the real world we're so much more alike than we are different, and we share a lot of the same values, and that really is kind of the beauty of the theater. People of all walks of life, and I would say that would be my answer to that, is just bringing people together in such a coming through this season that we'll be through in just a few short weeks, thankfully.
What types of audience engagement or outreach do you think are the most effective in creating deeper relationships with your audience?
I could go in a lot of directions with this one, and I'll just tell you the thing that is craziest to me is we do a lot. We do work with schools. We do big main stage shows. We travel all over the world. We just did India, which we took a brass band in India, which was crazy. Played for people who'd never seen a saxophone before. We also play in hospice and in assisted living facilities. And that is probably some of the most meaningful work. These people, some of them hadn't had visitors in years. And we come and we play for them, and we play music that's era appropriate for them, and it conjures memories. And it's always bittersweet, because you're thinking, they're thinking of times that their life was completely different. And I remember seeing a sweet little great-grandmother, and I can imagine, we're playing Christmas songs for her, and I can imagine what her life was when she was 20-something years old, and she had a house full of babies, and then they all grew up, and then she was a grandmother, and then she had a house full of grandbabies, and now she's like almost 100, and she's by herself. And that's a hard thing to do, and she's by herself. So we're like in this moment together. We're sharing this moment of music, and we're just kind of trying to capture what's special and just be together. And so that can be hard and special. I remember we played one assisted living facility, and the guy, a sweet, like a World War II veteran, came up and was like, I had a memory for every song that you played. And I was like, tell me your memories, I want to know. And he's like, oh, I don't think my wife would want me to tell you these memories. I was like, oh, they're those kind of memories, brother. I understand. Maybe you should keep those to yourself. But so I don't know. That's kind of my thought. My first thought of all that I do when it comes to creating special moments and memories and impactful things. That's kind of it. And of course, on the main stage, there's all kind of things that we talk about. One of the things that happens a lot is we just kind of talk about our travels and talk about how tremendously blessed we are in America. And that's a kind of a poignant, special moment where we all can kind of really be thankful that we are together. We're in this beautiful hall, and we're celebrating music, and we're telling stories. So maybe I got close to your question, perhaps.
You did, Jeremy. It was great. Thanks so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you. I look forward to doing the next one. As soon as you have me, I'll come back.
Next year, same place, same time?
Same time, same place.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Well, that was fun and different. I hope everybody enjoyed kind of hearing the different voices of the field. And I think it was fun to ask everybody what their view was from their seat. Because I think a lot of times when we have these big conversations, we want to make big sweeping remarks to encompass like a lot of the industry. But really and truly, we're all our own individual organization. We all have our own individual location and needs and different things. And curation means something different, no matter sort of what space you occupy in the industry. And so I thought it was really cool to hear these 5 voices. And I have a feeling that everybody that was listening along was like also answering them as they were going. And I would love to hear from anybody on social media, like if you guys had any other ways that you would want to answer the questions. But before we get there, what do you guys think?
I thought it was actually really interesting listening to the different perspectives coming from the industry. What I thought was really interesting is that they all sort of encompass some of the same, through lines. This idea of, some audience interaction, some immersive experiences, that's what some of the trends that they're seeing happen throughout the industry.
Yeah, Kevin, I had the same note. Actually, I wrote after each of them, this isn't going to be in order, but in Eric, I wrote his quote needs to be an experience. Gary said, what kind of experience are you creating? Jeremy talked about an experience, which I can't read my notes, so we'll just go with that. And then Joshua Kane also talked about the experience of the audience being in the room, how it impacts the show. And then Sarah, of course, talked about creating experiences that resonate for all ages, for kids, the parents, and the grandparents. So that was the through line that I captured as well. And
I'll be honest, I've been looking for more immersive experiences that we can adapt our theater to be a part of. We did The Strange Undoing of Prudencia Hart, which was an immersive theater show. And I've been looking for more things like that. And it's honestly really hard to find things that tour that do that. I agree that that's something that the audience loved and wants more of, because I've been asked over and over and over to bring that back.
Well, and the challenge with that, though, like Prudencia, there was a limited number of seats, right, for that show. And so the capacity for a lot of the things that are sort of out there, maybe coming out of Edinburgh Fringe, they're small capacity experiences. So the financials on those things are going to be really difficult for us to make work, particularly when we are trying to serve large scale audiences. Coming out of a venue that has a museum as a part of it, I was able to attend a really fantastic museums conference last year. And there's a ton of this immersive work happening in the museums world. So I think we should probably be looking towards that space and looking at how do we bring some of that museum work actually into the spaces we have available to us as programming for our performing arts centers, utilizing sort of what they can bring in immersive rooms and walkthroughs and visual, kind of like visual stuff. But then how do we maybe integrate performing arts into that as well to make it a multi-sensory, multi-experiential sort of day out for a family or an individual? So how do we translate what they're doing and what they're learning into the performing arts world? I think that's a really interesting question.
That's awesome, Katie. And one of the things that like I kept coming back to whenever I was listening to these interviews that I felt like some kind of touched on and some just sort of reminded me, I think across a lot of programming for young audiences, this is probably going to be my soapbox, but theater for young audiences kind of work is somewhat underutilized. And I think that whenever people are in a place where margins are kind of tight, or they're looking to bring in new audiences, or the audience is changing, a lot of those new and changing audiences might have families. And that might be a great way to connect with growing new populations. TYA, as I know, is used to traveling on a shoestring budget, and they do it, and and they love it, and hopefully that changes in the future. We hope that changes for all artists in the future. But also artists that work in TYA space, they usually have some kind of community engagement outreach, and so I just kept coming back to how much I guess I wish that family performances were a little bit more at the center of our industry.
I think that's an interesting concept. I mean, I think what I sort of take away from that is that as presenters and as people programming venues, I think we have to think outside of the box a little bit. Like youth and family programming does do a really great job of doing audience interaction, before and post show to sort of create that environment. but why can't we do that with sort of a night show environment? I mean, I think people as adults, like as, they have sort of the same sort of childlike wonderment and want to do that. And I think if you give them the opportunity to, they will take advantage of that.
One small thing that we did in that vein with a local community production of Rock of Ages just recently was for VIP ticket holders, which was the first 4 rows, so about 100 and some odd seats. They were allowed access to the stage pre-show, and we made the bar in the set an actual functioning bar for pre-show and intermission. They could sit at the bar tables on stage, and they had access to that space and could drink within the bar for the show as part of their experience.
Oh, stealing that.
That's cool.
You should.
That's fun.
It was fabulous. And it was an extra, I mean, it was only a $10 or $15 bump.
And then they're still buying booze.
And they're still buying booze. And that's over a weekend of shows. I mean, that's an extra few $1,000s that wouldn't have been there. And they're probably buying more than they would have because of the experience that they're having.
Yep.
All of these things we're talking about, it's all experiential. It's thinking out of the box, like you said, and it goes to what Gary was saying about risk taking and the importance of that. And even just here in Pennsylvania and talking to a lot of my colleagues in my state consortium, it seems to be the successful shows are the ones where people are taking more risks or thinking outside of the box, and the quote unquote safe things are not performing up to standards or what people expect. So it's kind of an interesting time, and it has me thinking a lot about what is safe and what is the point of risk. And I know, Josh and I have had a lot of conversations offline about how risk is actually paying off more. So
that sort of is in direct contrast with the other messaging we're hearing, though, from other people, is though like comfort. Audiences want, comfort food. They want music that they're familiar with. They want theater that they're familiar with. Like, is that still a real narrative?
The risk that people are taking, and the cultural centers, if I will, the people who always kind of did the not popular programs are now taking the risk of doing the comfort things and the tribute shows and things. And for them, that is a risk because they're worried about losing the audiences they did build in the quote unquote cultural sector. And so it's kind of, it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing for everybody, but that's one way that it happens. So it might be the comfort thing is the risk.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the point that Jeremy Davis made about talking about tribute acts going into the PACs and how that has been a shift. And instead of having this moment of being like, oh no, this competes with me, like they went, oh, how can we basically do what we do, but give somebody that entry point similar to a tribute act? And I was like, that's a really smart way to think about that, instead of sort of that panic mindset of oh, like we now have another competitor here.
Yeah, I love that story.
Well, and in the same vein, like Sarah Saltwick mentioned that they're doing a lot more science programming. They have a lot more science programming on their roster. And I think that's also like, instead of an, oh no, the things that we have aren't really resonating. They're just going, okay, why don't we shift and actually listen to what I think teachers in particular are asking for when it comes to school matinee and like after school programming, because that is all that I hear from teachers is we need science, we need STEM based, because they still want to integrate performing arts or deliver that curriculum through performing arts because they understand the importance of STEAM. But if they can't draw a direct line from curriculum point A to the performance, they're not getting the approval, right? And they have to buoy different parts of the curriculum in different ways. So instead of like fretting about it, they're just shifting their programming. And artists, I think, are also responding because they've seen an uptick in requests for science-based programming. And it's all a balance when it comes to school matinee programming. Sometimes you need the more curriculum-based stuff, and then sometimes you need those moments of wonder. And it's all about the balance in that season.
I also think that the science and maybe the things that seem a little bit more academic are a good entry point for families and people that maybe wouldn't have seen the value in bringing their kids to a kid show in the past are, that could get them in the door the first time and be able to see an experience just because they were thinking that it would just reinforce something that their kids were doing at school. And then they get in there and they have an awesome experience and get to see that a little bit more. I definitely can see the real value in these kind of entry points of things that maybe feel risky. But I think kind of going back to your point of it's like, how do we take that and do it the way we do it?
Well, as Danielle mentioned in the beginning of this out, that we just interviewed 5 of our colleagues and we're just 5 more. So that's 10 voices in a very large industry. And so there are probably a lot more ways that people can go about doing this. And we would love, if you're out there listening and you are handling curation or involved in our industry with curation in some way, we'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. As Danielle mentioned, shoot us a message on Facebook or on Instagram and let us know some other thoughts that we didn't get to today, or share what you think stood out about this conversation today. Also, while you're on social, you can check out those pictures of Bry-Bacca that we were talking about at the beginning of this episode. And we'll be with you next week with another topical episode from Max. Until then, we hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to There's No Business Like. Our producers and hosts are Brian Zelmer, Josh Benson, Kevin Maynard, Katie Miller, and me, Danielle Van Hook. Views expressed in this podcast are ours alone and are not reflective of the organizations we are a part of. Keep up with us at nobusinesslike.com. There you'll find links to all of our episodes and socials. If you like this podcast, give us a like, a follow, a review, or our favorite, a 5-star rating. Oh wait, what was that site? I got it, don't worry. It is nobusinesslike.com. Do I sound out bus-I-ness every time I type it? Yep, sure do. Stay in touch, my friends.
Josh Benson rocking it from the Marion Cultural and Civic Center. Did I say my name weird?
It was all weird.
It was all weird.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I don't know. It was all weird.
No, like I caught it like halfway in and I'm like, what the? Oh, let's roll back that.
Roll back that beautiful bean footage.
It's going to be a good day.
I'm broken. I'm out today. All of this is broken.
Hey, do you want me to do it for you? I'm Josh Benson, rocking it from Marion Cultural Civic Center, Marion, Illinois. Nailed it.
My brain feels like a skibbity toilet today.
I don't know what the middle word was there.
Skibbity.
Skibbity toilet. Okay.
Skibbity toilet. Yeah.
Did I use that correctly?
You did, actually. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Surprisingly, yes.
You're up, Mr. Benson.
Josh Benson rocking it from Marion, Illinois at the Marion Cultural and Civic
Almost got through it. Let's
Got stuck in there, man. So should we just go from the top?
I am the top. So yes, we're going from the top. That's how we're closing these.